background of Republican Vice President nominee J.D. Vance and his family life. Good morning. Welcome to Amir Shakil 5858. I am Amir Budnam. I am thankful to all international news resources and my team. I am also thankful to all American, European, Canadian, Australian, Asian, African channels and AP, AFP and Reuters news agencies. Now watch the channels. Rather, headlines. Working class background, lawyer, Indian wife. Many Republican leaders claimed election rigging. Hamas war crimes on October 7 attack. Arkansas hit by severe flooding. Upstate New York hit by tornado. Hundreds of thousands of people are still out of power in US. Appeal against Trump case. Israeli team come to Egypt for ceasefire talks. Israeli Prime Minister says Hamas is near elimination. 10 years after Malaysian airlines shut down. Business swap has taken place between Russia and Ukraine. Mayor of Paris took a dip in the river Seine. Emmy nominations. On Wall Street, Dow Jones Industrial up, Nasdaq and S&P 500 down. Labor union ban in Australia. Infighting is still continuing in French political parties. Now watch the channels.
Good evening. I'm Jeff Bennett.
And I'm Amna Nawaz. On the NewsHour tonight, Vice presidential nominee J.D. Vance prepares to take the stage at the Republican National Convention here in Milwaukee. A look at his political views and how they've shifted in recent years.
A lot of Americans got to know him in 2016 as a Rust Belt working class conservative who thought Donald Trump had the wrong prescriptions to save people like the ones he grew up with.
Plus, a number of convention speakers claim past elections have been rigged and non-citizens are voting, all despite a lack of evidence. We lay out the facts.
And a detailed Human Rights Watch report accuses Hamas of war crimes for the October 7th attack on Israel.
Corporation for Public Broadcasting, and by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to the NewsHour from inside the Republican National Convention here in Milwaukee. Tonight, the stage behind us belongs to J.D. Vance, who will headline the evening and accept his party's nomination for vice president.
Last night belonged to Donald Trump's one-time rivals in the bruising primary race, making peace with the nominee and urging the party to put aside its differences. Lisa Desjardins starts our coverage tonight from the floor.
As we get ready for day 3,
severe weather refuses to let up across large parts of the U.S. with heavy rains and tornadoes wreaking havoc.
For that and all of the day's other headlines, we head back to Washington and our Stephanie Sy, who has the details. Stephanie?
Yes, Amna and Jeff, Arkansas is the latest state to deal with extreme flooding. Nearly 11 inches of rain turned backyards into ponds and sent water rushing through streets in parts of Marion County. Officials said dozens of residents had to leave their houses. At least 80 people were evacuated from a local nursing home. While in the Northeast, upstate New York is cleaning up after a tornado ripped through Oneida County. Governor Kathy Hochul said her flight to the area gave her a bird's eye view of the damage.
You cannot imagine the impact of seeing from the sky how vast the destruction is. When you see entire swaths of trees just collapsed like they were toothpicks.
Meanwhile, across the U.S., hundreds of thousands are still without power after a series of storms, with outages spanning from Texas in the south through Illinois and up to New York in the Northeast. Prosecutors have formally appealed a federal judge's ruling to toss out Donald Trump's classified documents case. On Monday, District Judge Eileen Cannon ruled that special counsel Jack Smith had been unlawfully appointed by Attorney General Merrick Garland. Cannon's decision went against decades of precedent by other federal courts that upheld such appointments. The decision was the latest legal victory for the Trump camp, following the Supreme Court's ruling earlier this month that gave broad immunity to presidents while in office. This appeal could result in months of legal wranglings, meaning any outcome would come well after November's presidential election. In the Middle East, an Israeli delegation touched down in Cairo, Egypt today, where international mediators are trying to push forward a ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas. Talks resumed as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu faced criticism from opposition lawmakers in Jerusalem for his management of the war. But he insisted today that Hamas will only bow to heavy pressure.
We are making progress in achieving the war goals, freeing hostages, eliminating Hamas, and ensuring Gaza will not be able to pose another threat to Israel, thanks to combining military and political pressure. And I can tell you unambiguously that Hamas is indeed under pressure. The more we persist with the pressure, the more they will give up.
Also today, Israel released 13 Palestinians who had been detained for several weeks. That's according to the Palestinian Red Crescent. Some wept when they reunited with loved ones. Others described brutal beatings and showed signs of bruising, though those claims have not been independently verified. Commemorations have taken place to mark 10 years since the shooting down of Malaysia Airlines flight MH17. In the Netherlands, relatives of passengers and crew gathered at a memorial close to Schiphol Airport, where the doomed flight departed on July 17, 2014. More than half of those on board were Dutch. Another memorial event was held near the crash site in the Donetsk region of Ukraine. 298 people were killed when the flight from Amsterdam to Kuala Lumpur was shot down by a missile fired from territory held by pro-Russian rebels. Russia has denied any involvement. Russia and Ukraine have completed their latest prisoner swap, exchanging 95 captives each.
Slava Ukraini!
Patriotic cheers rang out from the Ukrainians as they celebrated their newfound freedom. Video released today showed soldiers exiting a transport bus looking gaunt but relieved. For its part, Russia released footage of their soldiers, some looking weary and making calls to home. This was the first such prisoner swap in 3 weeks and the 54th since Russia's invasion in 2022. In France, the mayor of Paris today took a dip in the Seine River to prove it's clean and ready for the Olympic Games. With the crowd cheering on, Anne Hidalgo fulfilled a promise to show the waterway is suitable for hosting open water swimming competitions. Since 2015, officials have spent more than $1 billion to clean up the Seine. Swimming there has been banned for over a century. The Paris Olympics kick off July 26th. A pair of FX shows lead the pack in this year's Primetime Emmy nominations. Shogun came out on top with 25 nominations. The 17th century Japanese drama earned nods for Best Drama Series, Best Actress, and Best Actor. The Bear, also an FX hit, set a new record for comedies with 23 nominations. Its star, Jeremy Allen White, will try for a repeat win in the Best Actor category. Ayo Edebiri will compete for Best Actress after winning in a Best Supporting role last year. This year's nominations come just 6 months after the industry held its last Emmy ceremony, which had been delayed due to the writers' strike. On Wall Street today, stocks ended mixed as a drop in big tech stocks weighed on markets. The Dow Jones Industrial Average gained more than 200 points to close well above 41,000, but the Nasdaq posted its worst day since 2022, dropping more than 500 points. The S&P 500 also ended sharply lower. And a dinosaur in New York has crushed prior records for archaeological auctions. An unidentified buyer paid $45 million for this 27-foot-long Stegosaurus skeleton known as Apex. That's about 10 times the original estimate set out by auction house Sotheby's. The spiked creature roamed the earth more than 160 million years ago. It was excavated last year in Colorado. Sotheby's had billed it as the finest Stegosaurus fossil ever to come to auction. Still to come on the NewsHour, a new Human Rights Watch report lays out the evidence that Hamas committed war crimes on October 7th. And thousands in Houston remain without power in the Texas heat more than a week after Hurricane Beryl.
Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report, War, Peace, and the Presidency, Breaking with Convention. I'm Amy Goodman. In Gaza, Israeli forces have killed at least 42 people in airstrikes on a UN-run school in Nuseirat and on a so-called safe area in Al-Mawasi near Khan Yunis. The Nuseirat attack, which killed at least 23 Palestinians, is the sixth time Israel bombed an UNRWA school in the past 10 days. This is a survivor.
Where is the safety for the agency UNRWA schools? There are no more safe agency UNRWA schools, nor safe clinics, no more safe houses, no safe streets. We have been left desolate, displaced, and destroyed. And here we are. What have the children done to deserve this? Where are the countries? Where are the people? Where is the world? What do we do with the wrath of mothers, children? What is their sin? What have they done?
UNRWA, the UN Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees, reports 70% of its schools in Gaza have now been bombed, and over 500 people who'd taken shelter in them have been killed by Israel since October 7th. Separately, UNRWA projected it will take 15 years to clear the rubble from Israel's destruction of Gaza. The Center for Constitutional Rights has filed a Freedom of Information Act request to access communications of the Biden administration related to the International Criminal Court's investigation into Israeli war crimes in Gaza. The group says it's focused on efforts by the U.S. and U.K. to block the ICC from delivering arrest warrants for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant. Lebanese state media reports Israeli air attacks in southern Lebanon have killed at least 5 Syrian civilians, including 3 children. Israeli military and Hezbollah have been trading near daily fire across the border since Israel's war on Gaza began. In New York, a federal jury Tuesday convicted New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez of corruption on all 16 counts he faced. The disgraced Democrat, once head of the powerful Senate Foreign Relations Committee, was Silicon Valley billionaires who've bankrolled his political career, unquote. In Kenya, at least one person was killed in a fresh wave of youth-led anti-government protests demanding President William Ruto resign. At least 50 people have been killed since protests broke out last month in response to a now-withdrawn tax bill. This is a protester in Mombasa.
We're still protesting because Ruto could have easily dissolved this from the first week. He would have signed off his people from the first week. He would have stepped down from the first week. But he's waited this long. All these people have died, all this life loss. And still he cannot see the bigger impact he's creating on the country.
In other news from Kenya, hundreds more national police officers were deployed to Haiti this week as part of a UN-backed security mission. Federal prosecutors have started to offer new plea deals and drop more serious charges against January 6th insurrectionists following last month's Supreme Court ruling that limited the use of felony obstruction of Congress charges against a rioter. Those expected to benefit include members of the extreme right Oath Keepers and Proud Boys. Over 250 January 6 defendants could seek to vacate their obstruction convictions or charges. Many of them, however, were also charged with other felonies. And in other Supreme Court news, President Biden's reportedly preparing to endorse major changes to the nation's highest court, including establishing term limits and an enforceable code of ethics. Biden is also reportedly considering a call for a constitutional amendment that would eliminate broad immunity for presidents and other officials. As Sudan's warring parties continue to fight for control, UNICEF reports some 50,000 people have fled and sought refuge in the eastern region of Khartoum, with many more expected to arrive in the coming days as they escape the violence. This is UNICEF Program Coordinator Nasra Islan.
So far, 400 children have been registered here, of which they are receiving several services, including mental and psychosocial support, as we have seen many of the children and families are missing their loved ones here.
In Bangladesh, at least 6 people have been killed in a wave of student protests over government quotas on public sector jobs. Up to 30% of those positions are reserved for the relatives of soldiers who fought in Bangladesh's independence war against Pakistan in 1971. Critics say the quota unfairly benefits families who support Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. A number of government jobs are also designated for women, ethnic minorities, and disabled job applicants, but those are not included in protesters' grievances. Schools and universities across Bangladesh have shut down amidst the growing unrest. In France, President Emmanuel Macron has accepted Prime Minister Gabriel Attal's resignation as the government steps down after suffering a major defeat in snap elections Macron called earlier this month. But Attal will stay on as caretaker amidst ongoing uncertainty over a new government. A leftist coalition, which came together just days ahead of the July 7th parliamentary election, pulled off a surprise victory and a blow to both the far right and Macron. But the alliance did not secure an outright majority and has since not been able to agree on a candidate for prime minister. Macron, meanwhile, has called on centrist parties to form a ruling coalition. In other news from France, police continue to forcibly remove undocumented immigrants around Paris ahead of the Summer Olympics, which kick off next week. This is Jocelyn, an unhoused Congolese mother.
I have 2 children, and because we're living on the streets, one fell ill with asthma, so it's very difficult for me with the Olympic Games. We do all of our activities in Paris. What will become of us now? Can anybody find a solution for us?
In more Olympics news, Amnesty International has slammed French authorities over its policy banning its Muslim athletes from wearing headscarves. The group said, quote, banning French athletes from competing with sports hijabs at the Olympic and Paralympic Games makes a mockery of claims that Paris 2024 is the first gender-equal Olympics and lays bare the racist gender discrimination that underpins access to sport in France, Amnesty International said. And a new U.S. Senate report finds Amazon Prime Day results in a massive spike in warehouse worker injuries. An investigation by Senator Bernie Sanders' Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee found Amazon Prime Day in 2019 led to a whopping 45% of Amazon warehouse workers sustaining injuries. Bernie Sanders said of the findings, quote, Amazon may be a $2 trillion corporation. Its owner, Jeff Bezos, may be worth $215 billion, but that does not give them the right to put their $36 billion in annual profits ahead of the health and safety of their workers. This type of corporate greed must end, Senator Sanders said. And those are some of the headlines.
Tonight, breaking news on President Biden's health. The president diagnosed with COVID just before addressing a major Latino voter event in a key swing state. It comes amid lingering questions about his health and what he said about his plans to keep running. The news comes following a new high-profile call for him to exit the race. J.D. Vance's first Republican National Convention is as its vice presidential nominee. His selection signaling the possible future of the party. Our look into his rapid rise to former President Trump's running mate, the sharp contrast Vice President Harris is already drawing. Plus, the new timeline of when the Secret Service spotted the would-be assassin at this weekend's rally. And more new details, his visit to the site days before, and images tonight showing the transmitter found next to the shooter's body, what it was designed to do. And just in, Senator Bob Menendez intends to resign after being found guilty on all counts. Flash flood emergency, homes and businesses and bridges washed away in the Ozarks. And the sudden deadly deluge in the Northeast. Mystery abroad, 2 Americans dead after a possible poisoning in a luxury hotel in Thailand. What we're finding, plus the chilling image of the crime scene. Speaking out, NFL legend Terrell Davis saying he was arrested and humiliated aboard a United flight in front of his children after asking for a cup of ice.
This is NBC Nightly News. Reporting tonight from the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, here is Lester Holt.
Tonight, we're following several political stories on day 3 of the Republican National Convention. Here in Milwaukee, we hear from Senator J.D. Vance for the first time since becoming Donald Trump's running mate. And we take an in-depth look at what a second Trump presidency might look like.
We have got to re-elect President Donald J. Trump to the White House, right?
Plus, the turmoil in the Democratic Party as another House member calls on President Biden to drop out, and the stunning number of Democrats who want a new candidate. The CBS Evening News starts now.
Tonight, as we come on the air in the West, the breaking news: we have just learned that President Biden has been diagnosed with COVID. The images of him boarding Air Force One a short time ago. Also developing as we come on tonight, we have stunning new video of the gunman who tried to take Donald Trump's life a full hour before he opened fire. First tonight, the news just in: President Biden has COVID, what we've learned moments ago. And it comes amid new questions tonight over whether he'll stay in the race. A new call for him to, quote, pass the torch from a leading Democrat in the House. What our Mary Bruce and John Carl have learned tonight about where this goes from here. Also breaking tonight, that video appearing to show the alleged gunman Thomas Crooks walking the perimeter of that Pennsylvania rally about 1 hour before trying to assassinate Donald Trump. Seen with a rangefinder. And what we just learned, he was first identified as a person of interest a full 62 minutes before he opened fire. And that he was seen by Secret Service snipers on that roof a full 20 minutes before he fired the president. Pierre Thomas standing by with his late reporting. Here in Milwaukee tonight, Republican vice presidential candidate J.D. Vance preparing to take center stage. His speech in prime time tonight will carry it live here on ABC. And the Biden campaign pointing out J.D. Vance's position on abortion rights and saying Vance would not have done what Mike Pence did. Vance suggesting he would not have certified the election in 2020. We are tracking severe storms in the Northeast at this hour: New York City, Philadelphia to Washington, D.C. Winds gusting up to 70 miles per hour. Ginger Z is here. There's news tonight about 2 Americans found dead in Thailand. Initial reports this evening saying it might have been cyanide. Here in the U.S. tonight, newly released surveillance: a deadly crane collapse, a construction worker killed. Buried in the sand, the race to save a 16-year-old girl. And you could call it a bear of a day for the Emmy nominations. The big winners already tonight.
From ABC News, this is ABC World News Tonight with David Muir. Report.
I have seen this man dragged through hell and back, in and out of courtrooms, indictments, impeachments, mugshots, and even an assassination attempt. And yet, he has never backed down.
That was a moment late last night in prime time. The RNC co-chair, Laura Trump, she got a big job right now trying to get her father-in-law reelected. Last night was not just a family affair. Several of Trump's former Republican rivals also on stage in a show of unity. House Speaker is Mike Johnson out of Louisiana, and he is our guest here in Milwaukee. Good morning to you, sir. How you doing?
Great to have you.
Good morning. Great to be with y'all.
Just 2 nights, 2 shows, 2 performances, however you want to characterize it. How would you rate it so far?
I would use that word that you had there in the graphic, unity. It's a great feeling among the people. We've got friends from all around the country, 50,000 people here participating, and there's a real energy in the place. It was such an experience to sit in the box with President Trump on Monday night when he made his debut, the first time he had really been out in public since the assassination attempt. It was like walking in, those videos when he walks into a UFC fight.
Yeah.
Is that kind of energy?
Felt that too.
It hasn't stopped, as you know. And it's a really exciting time to be a Republican.
I read this morning that Rich Hudson, who is the congressman from North Carolina heading up the efforts to reelect Republicans to the House, has sent a warning to Democrats that if you are in a Biden +3 district, meaning that's a district that Biden won just by 3 points, that the Republicans are coming after them. So are you, maybe you don't want to forecast a red wave, but are you guys feeling confident about taking the House back?
We're feeling very confident.
I'm sorry, keeping the House?
Yes, we're very bullish about November. We believe that Donald Trump will be reelected president, that we will take back the Senate for the Republican Party, and I'm convinced that we will grow the House majority as well. We'll have a unified government. We'll be in charge of all 3 of those centers of power, and we'll have a moment to unify the country, and that's what President Trump...
On this Wednesday night, weathering extreme storms.
Toronto is resilient.
The challenge for Canada's largest city to adapt to climate change. Former Republican rivals hop on the Trump train.
Donald Trump has my strong endorsement.
Can he really stick to his word and unify Americans? Sit, wait, and obey the border rules. What pet owners now have to do before bringing their dogs to the U.S. Plus, a place ready for rest, relaxation, and rowdiness.
In the design, this cardboard bed, whole free or whole people jumping on that.
Inside the Athletes' Village at the Paris Olympics.
Global National with Donna Friesen
Good evening and thanks for joining us. It is back to business in Toronto after a record-breaking storm yesterday that dumped so much rain, parts of that city came to a standstill. The water has now
And that decision and announcement will be closely watched by anyone looking to buy a home. But tonight there are questions about another reported real estate transaction for a Canadian diplomat in New York. CTV's Mike Couture explains.
There are a few perks to being Canada's representative in New York City, and this is one of them. A condo on Billionaires Row, south of Central Park. The residence on the 11th floor will be home to Consul General and former journalist Tom Clark.
He is your governor.
According to the Canadian press, the government purchased the unit for about $9 million. The 3,600 square foot residence includes access to a swimming pool and paddle tennis court.
$9 million on an apartment at a time at a time where Canadians can't afford to eat or house themselves, I say again, is outrageous.
The old place, seen here in a 2003 W5 special, needed extensive renovations, according to Global Affairs Canada. The department adds the move will actually save taxpayers $2 million. In a statement to the Canadian press, a spokesperson said, considering the high renovation costs for the current residents and the value of the property, Global Affairs Canada recommended a relocation to a new, smaller, more suitable, and more economical apartment.
If you want to play in the big leagues, you have to pay to some degree.
This former diplomat points out Canada needs these types of residences to host influential lawmakers abroad.
Ambassadors or consuls general are housed very well and generally in the middle of the pack. So not so lavish and also not so shabby, but pretty much where we are as a country.
In 2013, the Harper government sold the High Commissioner's residence in London for $530 million, money that went to renovate the current embassy known as Canada House. The Conservative deputy leader wouldn't say if they'd do the same.
I think a new Pierre Poilievre government is going to look right across government to find efficiencies and savings for all Canadians on all fronts.
CTV News asked Global Affairs Canada if the old Manhattan residence will be sold to offset the cost of the new one. They have yet to respond. Omar?
All right, Mike, thanks.
Tonight, as Republicans build convention momentum, Eric Trump speaks to CBC News about Saturday's shooting.
I was watching that with my kids on a couch with my two young children as they almost watched their grandfather and my father, get killed that day.
Here he comes, guys. And J.D. Vance gets his chance to set the tone. The message to delegates and to voters. We've got full coverage and analysis. Long-haul truckers in this country putting in the hours, but not being paid.
So wage theft is probably the biggest problem we're seeing in the trucking industry right now.
A CBC News investigation. And new U.S. border commands for Canadian dog owners.
We're gonna take him anyway.
What you need to know and when.
From CBC News, this is The National with Chief Correspondent Adrian Arsenault.
I am Chinua Sondu, reporting from Lagos, Nigeria for France 24. Join me on all updates on Nigeria on France 24 news programs.
Chinua Sondu, one of the 200 France 24 correspondents around the world.
Good morning, I'm Oliver Farry, and this is Daybreak. Donald Trump's vice presidential pick gives his first speech as running mate at the Republican National Convention. Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, who once compared Trump to Adolf Hitler, says the former US president is America's only hope to fight off the country's elites. The European Parliament votes to elect a new president of the European Commission. Ursula von der Leyen's hopes of re-election received a blow on Wednesday after a top EU court ruled she had not been transparent about COVID-19 vaccine contracts. But her European People's Party is confident she will have the votes to secure a second term. France's new National Assembly meets for the first time today following last week's tumultuous legislative elections. The first order of business will be to elect a speaker, a role that has taken on increasing importance as negotiations among the left-wing New Popular Front to nominate a new Prime Minister continue to stall. Donald Trump's vice presidential pick, J.D. Vance, has addressed the Republican National Convention on Wednesday nights. Israel launched a slew of airstrikes across the central and southern Gaza Strip on Wednesday, killing at least 81 Palestinians and wounding 198, according to the Gaza Health Ministry. The assault follows Benjamin Netanyahu's pledge to ramp up military efforts to wipe out Hamas, and the Israeli army says that it had hit 25 targets across the enclave in the space of 24 hours. Vedika Baal has more. As political infighting continues in France since last week's parliamentary poll, all eyes are now turning to the National Assembly's first session on Thursday and to the election of the new Speaker of France's lower house, a role that has taken on more importance faced with a weakened president and the gridlock to form a government. Outgoing Speaker and Macron ally Yael Braun-Pivet is hoping to be re-elected. She will face a stern test convincing the two other largest blocs in the Assembly, who each want the position. Emerald Maxwell takes a look.
After leaving their last cabinet meeting as full government ministers under Emmanuel Macron, his centrist MPs can now turn their attention to another prize. The President or Speaker of the National Assembly, who organises the Chamber's agenda and runs debates. They are the fourth highest ranking official in France, and at a time when President Macron is weakened and no party or group has an absolute majority to govern the country, it's an even central role. All the blocs or parties can put forward a candidate to a ballot held Thursday, freshly elected House time. The outgoing Speaker and Macron ally Yael Braun-Pivet is hoping to be re-elected. But the challenge for any candidate will be to rally enough support in a parliament split three ways between the leftist Popular Front, the centrist presidential camp and the far-right National Rally. The latter, as the smallest group of the three, has set its sights on other key positions in the Assembly, such as commission chairs. Whatever deals or alliances are made in the process will set the tone for the future chances of securing a parliamentary majority from which the government could eventually emerge.
This has been rocked by accusations of sexual assault against a famed priest celebrated for his work with the poor. Marie-Joseph Courès, popularly known as Abbé Pierre, who died in 2007, was accused of sexually assaulting several women, a minor, between the 1970s and 2005. The findings were revealed in a report by the charities he founded, Amos, and the Fondation Abbé Pierre. A former resistance fighter, Abbé Pierre's humanitarian work made him one of France's most public figures. Catherine Clifford has more.
Fallen from his pedestal 17 years after his death. Abbé Pierre was renowned for devoting his life to the poor and the homeless. Now, Emmaus, the charity that he founded, has released an independent report it commissioned, gathering testimonies from 7 different women. They revealed behaviour that, quote, could be interpreted as sexual assault or sexual harassment.
Our organisations celebrate the courage of the people who have given testimony and, through their words, allowed these facts to come to light. We believe them. We know that these intolerable acts have left their mark, and we stand by them.
The dates of the allegations range from 1970 to 2005, just 2 years before the priest's death at the age of 94. The report found one of the women was underage at the time of the events. The Bishops' Conference of France's Catholic Church reacted on social media.
The CEF wishes to assure the victims of its deep compassion and shame that such actions could be committed by a priest, and reiterates its determination to work to ensure that the Church is a safe house.
Even after his death, Abbé Pierre has remained the face of France's fight for the homeless. Seemed untouchable.
Doctors in Thailand have confirmed that the 6 foreign nationals found dead in a Bangkok hotel room on Tuesday had traces of cyanide in their blood. Thai police believe one of the 6 poisoned the others because of an investment gone wrong. The dead were 4 Vietnamese nationals and 2 US citizens of Vietnamese origin. Vedika Bahel has more.
This photo by Thai police shows the perfectly laid but untouched table of food.
in the luxury Bangkok hotel room where 6 foreign nationals were found dead. After combing through the evidence, forensic experts found traces of cyanide in teacups and all the victims' blood.
The mouths and nails on all of the bodies turned dark purple, and the face, and they were circulating
with the probe.
That's all we have time for now, but do stay tuned for more news coming up on France 24.
The United Arab Emirates has lifted a 21-month-long visa ban on Nigerians. Instead, travelers will be required to submit documents proving their identity and showing travel history, among other things, to generate a verification number that would then be used to apply for a visa. An exception is granted for applicants 13 years or younger, according to a website of the Emirati government. Nigeria's Financial Minister said Monday that the decision came after mutually beneficial negotiations. He was present on a number of, including allegations of improper conduct and attempt to circumvent visa rules. The announcement ends a tense standoff and resumes a much sought-after route for business and leisure travelers as trade has grown between both nations. In May, carrier Emirates announced that it would resume daily flights between Lagos and Dubai later this year.
3 years after the introduction of free education in Zambia, schools are full of eager young students, but the extra pupils have led to overcrowding and a lack of resources. Since 2021, an additional 2 million children have been enrolled in primary and secondary schools. It's a move that is widely seen as a first step to a brighter future for young Zambians. But congested classrooms and a shortage of teachers is threatening the quality of education, with many pupils not reaching key educational targets, according to UNICEF. The Zambian government says it plans to build over 170 new schools and recruit 55,000 new teachers by the end of 2026. Despite the challenges, Education Minister Douglas Kalima says that overcrowding is a good problem, with education the best economic policy.
The Executive Board of the International Monetary Fund (IMF) has approved the disbursement of approximately $43 million to the Congolese government as part of the extended crisis initiated in 2022. This approval comes after 4 reviews of the 3 make effective of structural reforms. The International Monetary Fund, contrary to popular belief, does not give us money to carry out our development. The IMF helps improve the quality of financial credibility. This means that we become credible, and when we become credible, you can then the funds you need on the international financial market. Congo is above the community standard of inflation is at 0.7%, indicating an improvement at the macroeconomic levels.
Il y a une amélioration au niveau des indicateurs macroéconomiques.
However, some civil society members and political actors and cash flows tensions in Congo reveal governance shortcomings. I regret that in terms of major reforms that could have helped Congo out of the crisis, very little has been done. With a corrupt perception index of 22 out of 100, which is truly mediocre, nothing has been achieved. Pensioners have 41 months of pension arrears. Students have 3 or 4 years of scholarship arrears. And Marie Ngouabi University is on strike. I believe this is due to poor governance. According to IMF, Congolese growth is expected to be around 3.5%. From the the next will light at the end of the tunnel.
Pourrait enfin voir le bout du tunnel. Cédric Solo, Pointe-Noire, Africa News.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov engaged in bilateral discussion with his counterparts from Hungary, Switzerland, Iran, Libya and Kuwait during the Security Council session on Tuesday. During his meeting with Hungarian Foreign Minister, mentioned Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban's recent visit to Moscow. Lavrov emphasized the importance of implementing agreements.
Appreciate a balanced approach to the world affairs which you and other participants from Africa, Latin America and Asia expressed.
Additionally, Lavrov extended an invitation to acting Iranian Foreign Minister Ali Bagheri Kani to visit Russia.
The French Soccer Federation announced Tuesday that it will file a complaint with FIFA over racist and discriminatory remarks made by Argentina players in post-match chants after their Copa America title win. Argentina defeated Colombia 1-0 on Sunday in Miami Gardens, Florida. A widely viewed video run by Argentina midfielder Enzo Fernandez, who plays for Chelsea, showed Argentina players singing about French players with African heritage. France defender Wesley Fofana, Fernandez's Chelsea teammate, reposted the video on his social media. Who has to us is one of several black French players in Chelsea's squad. Similar chants by some Argentina fans occurred before France and Argentina met in the World Cup final 2 years ago. The chants targeted French players of African heritage from various countries who hold passports.
Happy 25 years, CNA. You guys make such a difference. Thank you for being there.
Unique combination earrings and necklace design. Perfect match 3. Luxury transform. Dangling earrings. Real touch. Only natural diamonds. Mason Jewelry.
This is Asia Now.
It's 2 p.m. in Singapore and Hong Kong, 11:30 in New Delhi and 1 o'clock in India. I'm Paul Sick. At the start, J.D. Vance pledges a new path in his first major speech since being picked as Donald Trump's running mate. He vows to defend the interests of the working class if Republicans are voted back into the White House in November. Protesters in Bangladesh call for a nationwide shutdown as violent anti-government protest over a controversial job quota system not stopping. The Prime Minister vows to punish those responsible for the deaths of 6 people. Also coming up, President Xi Jinping to map out his vision for China's economy on the final day of the third millennium. All eyes on Beijing's reform agenda and measures to tackle a sluggish economy.
Big Mission, Tuesday 8:30, or stream from the start on ABC iView.
Well, the criminally connected construction division of the CFMU last ties with the Australian Labor Party are all but severed. Labor's peak national decision-making body has suspended the union's affiliation, and with it, a source of funds the union would normally pump into the ALP will also be cut off. For how long is uncertain, but some branches are fuming and revenge their former comrades. We'll hear from one minister involved in the decision to isolate the union today. From the nation's capital, recognising traditional custodians around Canberra, I'm Greg Jennett. Welcome to Afternoon Briefing. Also on the program today, iron ore magnate Andrew Forrest is no stranger to Canberra, Washington, Paris or other major capitals, having pressed his case for assistance to push an aggressive drive towards making renewable generated hydrogen, or green hydrogen as it's known. Well, his Fortescue Metals Group has pumped a lot of its own money into decarbonising that company's operations too. But there's been a rethink, and some projects slated for development now either won't happen or their development will be stalled for quite some time. So we'll hear what this means for intensive green hydrogen projects backed by governments around the world. That's coming up a little bit later. We will hear from Assistant Trade Minister Tim Ayres later too. He was a part of Labor's National Executive meeting that held a special hookup today to seal the fate of the construction division of the CFMEU. The committee suspended the
Thank you for watching and privilege of your time. This is Amir Shakil 5858. I am Amir Woodman. Have a good life.